Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship, and today we're just going to do another Velocity Banking review. For this video, I've decided to make it Super Mario themed, right? So we're going to financially level up with Velocity Banking. It's a me, Mario. I got to do an AI voice with that and find an Italian American Charles Martinet accent. If you don't know who he is, he's like the voice of Super Mario 64. But I had an AI generated picture of Mario from Meta AI with a credit card. Now the Mario looks awesome, but the credit card, it's always kind of funky how AI can never do text right. It's always kind of weird. But yeah, so basically, we're going to level up financially with Velocity Banking, and Mario here is ready to do it with his line of credit ready for action. Okay. Now, with Velocity Banking, it's really simple. All you got to do is just do a spreadsheet, right? A spreadsheet like this. And here's the funny thing, this spreadsheet is really just a budget, right? And I know so many of you are like, "Whoa, I just need this Velocity Banking spreadsheet." And I feel like I kind of do a disservice to you if I just kind of give you the spreadsheet rather than encourage you to do it on your own and recreate it, right? Like you ever go to college or school and like you get this huge giant textbook and then it's like you don't really get anything out of it. And the reason why you don't get anything out just by being given a textbook is because you need the opportunity to practice over and over and over again, which is what you should do. So you pause the video, you do income, expenses, savings, and then just learn to do it over and over again and write all your debts, right? In fact, just to encourage all of you, I had an AI voice assistant kind of give you a pep talk, right? So just let's go ahead and hear the pep talk from the AI voice, British voice assistant, right? And if you ever want to create a velocity banking spreadsheet and even do hypothetical situations, all you need are two websites. You just need calculator.net, amortization calculator, you Google that. And you also just need bank rate minimum payment calculator for credit cards. So this we have one website for credit cards, one website for amortized loans, right? And so let's go ahead and start our pep talk and get it going with our professional British voice, Amelia.
Before we start, here are some words of encouragement. I know so many of you want to request a velocity banking spreadsheet, but in reality, all it is a simple budget with elementary school math formulas that you can easily recreate. If you just pause the video and try to recreate them yourself, I can almost 99% guarantee you will learn so much more than just asking for a spreadsheet. Good luck. I believe in you.
Wow, that sounded almost perfect until the very end. The very end sounded kind of awkward, but I was so motivated until the good luck part. But yes, I do believe in you, and I believe you can recreate these spreadsheets. Because remember that Bruce Lee quote where I don't fear the man who does one kick, or I'm sorry, 10,000 kicks once. I only fear the man who does one kick 10,000 times. That's what this YouTube channel is. That's what it literally is. I just do the same thing over and over again. And you might be wondering, oh my goodness, how are you so fast? Because I just did it over and over again. And I just recorded myself doing it. I cannot even believe that YouTube pays me like I'll say $300 to $500 a month just to record myself doing spreadsheets. It's kind of weird, right? I probably make more than most gaming YouTubers with the channel of 3,000 subs. But all right, let's go ahead and review. We're going to financially level up velocity banking. So, what is velocity banking? All it is a debt payoff strategy using your line of credit as your main operating account, right? So, if you don't have any debt, let's say you have $3,000 of income and $3,000 of expenses, but no debt, this is not the strategy for you because it's a debt elimination strategy, right? So, why is that important? Because most people don't understand, when they watch these videos, because, so many people from so many different contexts are watching these videos, they think that it should automatically apply to them when it doesn't. And the most important thing that you should know about debt is that banks don't lend money to people who need it, right? So if you're saying, well, how does this work for low income people? It really doesn't because most banks won't lend to low income people, right? I'm sure there's some exceptions, but most of them won't. It's kind of like the pharmaceutical industry, right? Like, who does big pharma want to sell pills to? Not really healthy people, and not people who are going to die tomorrow. People who are just kind of okay and living day to day, and then look like they're doing fantastic, and then at the end they list like a billion side effects, including the thing that they're trying to help. That's who they want. They want people who are living but not going to die tomorrow. Same thing with debt, right? Banks don't want poor people who are going to go broke tomorrow. So when people are always focused on low income, it's like, dude, watch another video because this is velocity banking, right? All velocity banking is a debt payoff strategy using a line of credit. And if you're going to get a line of credit, the most important thing is to get it before you ever need it. So many people don't want to hear this for some reason. And this is how I got to over 200, I think $87,000 in lines of credit. And I'm now getting comments like, why do you need that much credit for? Because I know that banks don't lend money to people who need it. So if I go ahead and get it when I need it, uh-oh, it's over for me. But when I get it when I don't need it and I have emergencies or I have, negative cash flow issues, that's what the credit is there for, to help me manage my cash flow in case I have huge expenses, and it'll be no problem for me. I mean, think about it. If you have a $10,000 roof leak, or I'm sorry, you got to replace a roof and it's going to cost you at least 10 grand to replace that entire roof because it's like 20, 30 years old, right? Isn't it much better to have the credit available then than to just scramble for something? That's what credit is for, and people just don't understand that. And obviously, don't spend it on stupid stuff like home remodels when you're not going to even sell your home, right? But let's go ahead and get into it. So, what is the requirements of velocity banking? Number one is a budget, and your budget is your debt attack plan, right? You have your income, you have your expenses, you got your savings. Now, we're doing pretty well here because the average American does not have $1,500 in savings. Now, what do we mean by average American? We're not talking about the amount we have in savings. We're talking about what's your main operating account, right? Your main operating account. Your main operating account here is your checking account, whereas when we do velocity banking, it's your line of credit. And what's really important is when we do our budget, we have our expense breakdown. So we'll just say that this is maybe someone a little bit younger with a good salary, two credit cards, a student loan, two student loans, not a loan. Maybe we decide that, hey, we're not going to live with mommy and daddy anymore. Although I think living with mommy and daddy is probably the thing that will save you a lot of money because rents and mortgages are so expensive now, right? In fact, in many, many places in the United States, it's probably more expensive to own a home than it is to rent. And a lot of people, for some reason, they don't like get that, right? Like, I don't know what it is, but I've been like, I say this to friends, like in California, it costs $8,000 to buy a home, whereas you can rent that same home for $4,000. And then they'll say stupid stuff like, but you get equity. I'm like, no. You know what I mean? Like, anyways. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. And so we'll just say we're not, if we had a mortgage, then that would be the last debt we would focus on, but we're just renting for now. So what we assume is that these general expenses are always going to stay with us unless we decide to move in with mommy and daddy and then we go back, pay no rent. Oh, or we get a mortgage and then that would be our last debt that we pay off. So what we're going to do is focus on paying off all of these five debts, and then once we've done that, we've pretty much maximized our cash flow, right? So we have a budget. Now we need a line of credit as our main operating account, right? So let's just assume we have a 15% line of credit at a $15,000 limit. So, it's just like a credit card, but and in fact, a credit card is one type of line of credit, but there's personal home equity lines of credit, right? And the the reason why so many people are unfamiliar with what a personal or home equity line of credit is because they're not as heavily promoted compared to credit cards, right? Like you see like a basketball game or a football game and it'll say something like brought to you by Visa or brought to you by MasterCard. So people understand what credit cards are, but they don't know what personal or home equity lines are, or they're not as familiar, right? I have a friend in Los Angeles and he owns real estate in Los Angeles and he's like, what's a home equity line of credit? He had no idea, right? So just because you own real estate doesn't mean you know what to do with that real estate or your options available. So we're going to assume that we have a $15,000 personal line of credit at 15%. And the cool thing about a personal line of credit compared to a credit card is that you can use it to pay anything. Like, think about trying to pay a student loan with a credit card. Sometimes you can do it with a service like Plastique, or even worse, a cash advance. I would just stay away from that. But it's not as convenient, right? Because you go to a personal line of credit, You go to the website and then you click a button on the bank's website, and then you just 1 second after, or maybe even less, the money's in your checking account, but they're charging you interest. So the most important thing isn't necessarily the interest rate, right? The most important thing is that cash flow, and if your cash flow is big enough, that interest rate, it matters, but not as much as you think it is. Like, people freak out, like they would overpay for real estate at three. So for example, let's say, yeah, I got a San Francisco property, right? In 2024, people would love to get a 3% interest rate for $1 million property, and I'm like, dude, if it were the 1980s and I could buy that same, or 70s, and I could buy that same real estate for $70,000 at a 25% interest rate, I would go for that. Right? People for whatever reason don't like equate purchase price as more important than the interest rate, which is kind of weird. All right, but let's just assume we have a $15,000 personal line of credit. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, because I get in the comments, who has a personal line of credit like that available, just ready to use? And the answer is me, right? So you see this $15,000 personal line of credit available, and this is like August 25th, 2024. I haven't used it, I just have it available. Why? Because I got it before I need it. This is the most important thing. And so a lot of people, they don't want to build that firm financial foundation before they start learning to handle tackle debt, right? They want to, so metaphorically, and I say this all the time, they want to learn how to drive the car after they've crashed it, right? That's kind of weird how so many people want to learn about finance after they've crashed the car, or learn how to drive after they crash the car. Learn how to drive before you before you start to drive, right? Or get some driving lessons. Heck, I sell financial and education, or I'm sorry, real estate and financial education literacy packages. I got to get going on that and start selling them. But what I'm saying is that so many people want to learn these things like after they've metaphorically crashed their car, and then they're going to say, well, who has a line of credit available? And like, well, I do, not you. If you're going to complain like that, because you're not going to learn the basic principles, which is banks don't lend money to people who need it, right? All right. So let's go ahead and complete the second part of this velocity banking spreadsheet, right? So what we do is we assume the same income. Now, here's the most important part. We don't have any savings, right? So the opposite of velocity banking is not extra payments, because all it is the extra payments with a line of credit mixed into it. The opposite of velocity banking is actually Dave Ramsey's step one, saving $1,000. It really is. And I've gone over that in other videos about how like this is not a feasible strategy when you're in debt, right? Like that's not the best optimal payoff strategy. So let me go ahead and do this, and I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste these expenses. Let's go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to show you that with velocity banking, we don't have any savings, but we have something called cash flow, which is income minus expenses. Now, I know what you're thinking. You might be thinking, hey, you're just shuffling words around, right? You're just shuffling words around because that's the exact same number of the savings. No, no, no. What I want to emphasize is that we have zero savings, and yet we're going to increase this number by making our line of credit as our main operating account, right? Our main operating account. Now, let's go ahead and do this. So we're going to go ahead and shuffle some debt to increase our cash flow, and the actual velocity banking strategy is your income into that line of credit, and then your expenses. Ooh, they could predict. Look at that prediction, out of the line of credit, right? So, and then our cash flow is going to decrease our debt. So let's go ahead and move these credit cards, right? 15,000 into this line of credit. Now, it's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that the available limit is exactly the credit card debt that I'm shuffling around. I just did it so that the demonstration would be easier. And then we get the next month. So what we have to do, again, there's only three formulas you really need when you're doing this section to calculate the next month's previous month plus one. That's like third grade math. And then the next month's balance is the previous month's balance plus the previous month's interest minus our cash flow number, right? And here's the thing. This number is actually increased by doing our debt transfer, right? How much has it increased? Well, these payments have now gone to zero. So now we went from $1,500 to $2,000 without even trying. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, right? So now our cash flow is $2,000 on day one by simply having a personal line of credit available to use, kind of like this, right? So, all right. So now let's go ahead and do this. And I'm going to take the balance, the interest, previous months, and then subtract it by our new cash flow, which is 2024.13. And then what I'm going to do is you're going to take the average daily balance, right? So we're going to estimate that average daily balance with this average function right here, multiply it by the interest rate, which is 0.15, right? You see that 15% right here. And then you divide it by 12 because it's calculated monthly, but when they quote you the interest rate, it's calculated, or they tell it that the annual interest rate, okay? And so now once we've gotten all of these three formulas, guess what? We just copy and paste until this goes to zero, right? And did I screw up? I probably did. I probably, these are probably previous calculations that I did, but it's okay. All right, so now we see that we paid off this 15 grand debt in 8 months. Ooh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. 15 grand debt in 8 months. So now what we got to do is just write some milestones, not a breakdown. Let me go ahead and rewrite this. Milestone, right? And then 15K in 8 months. Love it, right? We're financially leveling up. All right, so now we're at a point where we have to figure out which of these debts do we tackle. You know, sometimes when you have too many debts, it's like you get scared and you don't know which one to handle. And I know this from experience, right? Like for the longest time, I didn't want to log into the student loan portal. I was like, "What's going on?" Right? And I got really scared. Like I literally got scared when I had to repay my student loans. And so if you're looking at these and you figure out which one do I pay off first, well, an easy way to figure out which one to pay off first is something called a cash flow index, right? So if you've never heard of the cash flow index formula, right, let me just write right here, CFI or cash flow index. All it is the statement balance divided by the monthly payment, right? So let me just kind of show you here. So 15,000 is the balance divided by the monthly payment. And we're the same thing, 19,000 divided by 195, 22,000 divided by 425. And you can kind of think of this as like a ranking system. In fact, let me just kind of zoom out so this is easier to see. So this one is 15,000 divided by 155.46, and ignore the dollar sign. I should probably redo this. Hold on one second. Let me format this so that it looks a little bit better. So that it's because we're not actually doing this in dollars. Where is the formatting of the cell? All right. So let's give it 2 decimal places. Okay. And then this one is 19,000 divided by 195.09. And then this one is 22,000 divided by 425.32. And what you can think of it as like a ranking system, right? So the lower the number, that actually gives you more cash flow when you pay it off. Because think about this: would you pay 22,000 to get $425 of cash flow back, or would you pay 19,000 to only get this little bitty kind of half cash flow, $200 or 195? This is why we focus on this one first. In fact, I was talking to someone like a couple weeks ago, and that person was like, "I should pay off my mortgage first. It's the biggest balance." And I was like, what are you talking about? But he doesn't understand things in terms of cash flow. Sometimes people get focused on paying off that mortgage because it's tied to, your most precious asset, which is your home. But one of the reasons why you got to pay off the mortgage last is because based on the amount that you borrow and the amount that you pay monthly, it takes the least amount of cash flow. But my friend didn't know that. He was just like, oh, it's the biggest balance, so I should pay that. And it was actually a 2 point something percent interest rate. I was like, no, what do you do? What are you doing? Like, that makes no sense. But anyways, this is an easy way to indicate like which one should we pay off first. So now what we got to do, okay, so we know we got to pay this one off first. So this will be the auto loan, right? So pay that one off. And then, this one, we'll pay this one off first, lower balance, higher interest rate, and then this one, right? So let's focus on that auto loan. And in fact, we got to figure out what the balance of that auto loan is, right? So let's go ahead and zoom in. And then I got to go to bankrate. Or is it bank or calculator.net to figure out So 22,000 at 5 years, and what is it, 6% interest rate? Let me just make sure and go to here. Yeah, 6%. Okay. All right, good. So now, after 8 months, right? 8 months, we got to figure out what is the balance of that loan. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 19 grand. So let's go ahead and copy and paste this, go back to Excel, and then now what we can do is just kind of, um, in this case, right, we can just kind of what we call do chunking or pay off the loan in checks if we're going to use a line of credit, right? So here's the thing, right? If you have $2,000 left over in your savings, you have two options. Option number one is the default that everybody knows that they have. I could put this entire $2,000 directly into this auto loan. Now, would the average person do that? Absolutely not. Because if they did, then most auto loans and student loans would be paid off really quickly, and Dave Ramsey wouldn't even have a show, right? Like he wouldn't have a show because this is the default option everybody knows that they have, so they don't do it because they're scared because they feel like, oh my goodness, if I don't have any savings in case of emergencies, I'm effed. That's what they're thinking. So what we can do is that we can still attack this loan, just move some of it to the line of credit, and then use your cash flow to pay it off. So one of the biggest benefits of it is that it's really easy. And I know that that seems kind of stupid, right? Like, oh, it's really, really, but the way that I think of it is kind of, I think of it in two ways, right? Number one, if you directly overpay a loan and you ever need that money in emergency, you can never get it back, right? Like that's the whole reason why a loan has a lower interest rate than a line of credit is because of the one-way street, right? So think of it as like a Netflix account that you can only watch from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m., but it's the cheapest Netflix account, right? Now, some people might go for that, but I would never go for that because I'm not going to be awake then. Okay, it's the same thing with the one-way street loan. So another way that I think about it is a UPS left turn. So I don't know if you ever like looked up online, but UPS has pretty much a policy that says they avoid left turns as much as possible. Now, making the left turn is the most direct route, just like making an extra payment, but it causes issues for people with their cash flow, right? Because once that money's all in and you have an emergency, it's like you're freaking out. What do you do? Now, if you make the line of credit as your main focus, it's a lot easier because all you gotta do is just dump your income to the line of credit, and so you prevent something called segregation of income, which actually we didn't go over in too much in this video, but it'll make your life easy. But the most important thing is that you know the debt payoff order. So we pay the credit cards first and then the auto loan. But let's go ahead and do something called chunking, which is just move, let's say, I don't know, like $5,000. It just needs to be a small amount comparable to what you're getting paid. Let's just say $6,000, right? So if it's $6,000, then it's going to be, let me just do this, 13,432.84, right? So let's say we move $6,000 to our line of credit. So let's just do that right here. Plus $6,000. Okay. How long is it going to take us to pay off that $6,000? 2 months, and then we just kind of rinse and repeat over and over again with these amortized loans. So I know people are freaking out like, hey, this is a high interest rate line of credit. Oh my goodness, like that's always a losing situation. But think about the number of people who are actually in this position and can't get themselves to overpay the loan because they need the savings, right? And so again, this is where the bank kind of wants you at, where they never want you to overpay anything, including a line of credit or a credit card, right? So now luckily we have this thing called the velocity banking calculator. So what if you want to see how chunking works, it'll actually calculate that for you. And let me go ahead and pull it out. So give me one moment to pull out that velocity banking calculator. Okay, here we are with the velocity banking calculator. So this calculator was not created by me. It was created from Renatus, and this is where I originally first velocity banking from in 2017. And I actually, full disclosure, I actually make commission from selling their classes. So not only do they do just velocity banking, they do real estate financial literacy. This is where I learned how to get like deals at a discount, right? So I have like a rental property that I'm going to pay off in about 2 years. Again, results not typical, but I found it at a $100,000 discount. And my tenant gave me 14 grand my first rental real estate check. So check it out. Look up Renatus. It's online education, real estate financial literacy. And so I'm just kind of showcasing this calculator. And so all I got to do, the cool thing about this calculator, all I got to do is just punch in the numbers. And so let me just kind of quickly go to punch in the numbers. So it's 22,000, 22000. That was the original balance. And then the current balance is 19432.84. 19432.84. And then what is the interest rate? The interest rate was 6%. All right. Okay. And let me just redo this. So what is our expenses? Our expenses is uh, rent. So it's rent plus all the other stuff. So 2,700. Okay. And then our monthly income is 5,500. So let's go ahead and do that. 5,500, 5500. And the line of credit interest rate is 15. Now, here's the thing. When you do chunking, right? Or I don't know if that's the best word to describe, but when you're just moving pieces of the loan to the line of credit and paying it off over and over again, you don't have to pick a huge amount. So some people are like, well, if I get a HELOC and put the whole thing in a line of credit, that must be better because, they say sometimes you hear on the internet, oh, loans bad, lines of credit good. That's actually not true, right? If I could get, let's say, an apartment building, maybe a really good deal at $1 million at a 1% loan versus like a 10% line of credit, I would purchase it with that 1% loan, and then I would use that line of credit to help me manage my expenses and cash flow and help, pay off that loan at the same time, right? So I would try to get the best of both worlds, but I would not want to just purchase the entire thing with like say 9 or 10% line of credit, right? So just give me a hypothetical example, but let's see what happens when we move this entire thing into a line of credit. So 19432.84. So you could say, oh, wow, this is really impressive. And again, it's actually much more significant when it comes to like a real estate, which is the thing that I always warn you about. You don't need to replace your mortgage with a line of credit, but usually when you replace the whole thing with a line of credit, I mean, wow, wait a minute, something is off here because would I pay 15 grand of interest? Oh, you know what? It's the silly me. Okay. I'm like, what's going on here? 5 years. Okay. So, all right. Is this right? Let me just make sure, check my numbers. It's 425.32. 425.32. So why is this off? Let me fix this. One moment. Okay, whoopsie, found an error in my formula, so I just fixed it right now. And so, all right, so 425.32 is the payment, and I try to auto calculate this, and I was just usually I manually enter it, but I just like I'm sick of looking up the table, and so I fixed it. But let's say we do put the whole thing in a line of credit, right? And then you say, okay, wow, this is really great, zero point 0.6 years, that's awesome, and it is awesome, right? But if I just did like let's say 5,500 chunk, you could see like you could save a couple hundred. Now, when you're dealing with a higher balance loans like mortgages, it makes a huge difference. Whereas this one, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. So the balance does matter, right, as well. But you can see the time frame to pay it off is about 0.6 months. So let's go ahead and put in our where to go. Let me do this. Aha. So let's go ahead and put in how long it takes. So this is now 0, and it's going to take, what's zero point 0.6 months? So zero point 0.6 times 12, or actually, yeah, zero point 0.6 times 12. Oh, I didn't even put an equal sign. Oh, I'm getting so rusty. I'm just kidding. I've been doing this a million times. 7.2 months. So we'll just say 7.2 months. Okay, so what's 15 plus 22? 15 plus 22. So 37K plus 15 months. We'll say that. 37K, we'll say 16 months. Okay. All right. So now we've done that. Now we got to focus on the student loan, auto loan. I know I'm going to focus on the student loan right now. So let's go ahead and figure out what the balance of that student loan is at 16 months. So let's go to the internet to figure that out. So let's hold on. What's the current balance? Or what's the original balance? 15,000 at 4.5%. 15,000 at 4.5, and usually student loans are 10 years. Okay. And then at 16 months we got to figure out the balance. Oh geez, I'm screwing up. So 10, and then this is 4.5, right? So right here now I gotta go find out at 16 months. So it's about 13 grand, the current balance. Okay. So 13 grand is the current balance. So let's go ahead and pay this one off now. And what's our current cash flow? If we look up here, we'll zoom out. Our current cash flow is about 2,500. So we're bound to pay this off relatively quickly. So we just put in that velocity banking calculator, and I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do that. So let's switch gears here. Whoopsie. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and fill in the data. And what does it say right there? 15,000 is the original balance. And the current balance is 13,367.24. 13,367.24. The interest rate is 4.5. And it's a 10-year loan. And how long did it take us to pay that off? 0.4. So 0.6 plus 0.4 is 1 year, right? So amazing. And look at how it's. So we paid the auto loan and the student loan in 1 year. So let's switch gears right here. Okay. So here, all right. So we could actually just do this for student loan 1. So that's 37 plus 15. Okay, so that's 52K in, I guess, 20 months, right? 1 year plus 8 months. Okay, so we got that covered. And student loan 2, now it's time to focus on this one, and you're the very last one. All right, so what's the current balance? So we'll just take this one off. And we're not focusing on that, so let's make the font black. And then we're going to focus on this one, right? So what is the current balance of the student loan? Okay, so we'll go ahead and do that. So let's go to the other window. And now it's almost the same thing, but it's 19,000 at 4.3%. Okay, whoops, not 1.3, 4.3. And you see how tedious it would be if I actually slow down? I actually think I'm over the 30-minute mark right now. Oh my goodness. This is going to be a long video. Oh no, but don't worry, we're almost done. All right, so now 4.3%, and then at 20 months, what is the balance of that loan? 20 months, 16 grand. So let's go ahead and copy that here, right? 16 grand. Okay. So now, what is our current cash flow? Our current cash flow is about $2,500, right? Almost. 2,449.45. So let's go ahead and focus on this, and then now we're going to switch to that velocity banking calculator, and then just plug it in one more time, right? So original balance is 19 grand, so 19000. Current balance is 16371.58, 16371.58. Interest rate is 4.3, right? 4.3. And how long does it take to pay off? Half a year. Okay, cool, cool. Half a year. All right, so now let's go back to the spreadsheet. So let's go ahead and do that. Switch gears right here again. And then now that's half a year is 26 months. So 52 plus 19 is 71K. So 26 months. And then 26 divided by 12. That's about 2.17 years until we're debt free. Mind blown. Wow, that's amazing. And you see, again, all of this is just kind of mostly basic math. I know that that velocity banking calculator, again, it's only for Renata students, so I can't give it out. But you could still mostly calculate the debt payoff, even with just like simple Excel formulas, A minus B minus your cash flow. Although the velocity banking calculator I show you is more exact. Now, as just kind of words of encouragement, right? I'm going to play that AI voice generator one more time to kind of encourage you to create your own calculator, right? So let's go ahead and do that, and I'll just play it one more time.
Before we start, here are some words of encouragement. I know so many of you want to request a velocity banking spreadsheet, but in reality, all it is a simple budget with elementary school math formulas that you can easily recreate. If you just pause the video and try to recreate them yourself, I can almost 99% guarantee you will learn so much more than just asking for a spreadsheet. Good luck. I believe in you.
Wow, I'm so moved. And I believe her just because she sounds British. I don't know what it is, but that British voice makes it seem more authentic and sophisticated rather than just coming from me, which is why I have the AI voice assistant helping me out like that. All right, well, that's it for today. So we paid off $72,000 of debt. You see this 70 or $71,000. Let's highlight that. In about 26 months, about 2 point, what was it? 2.17. So I think 2 years and 2 months. Mind blown, right? All right, well, that's it for today. Leveling up financially. Have a great night, and we'll speak next time. It's Karina Lanta Mentorship.